All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the California Advanced Homes Program Orientation Update webinar. Today, we will explain the updated incentive values, kickers, and program rules. Most importantly, we will cover the Delta EDR entry point criteria. If you have a question, please enter it in the questions bar on the panel on the side of your screen. We will pause periodically to take questions throughout the presentation and again at the end. This presentation is being recorded and we will send you a link to the recording as well as the slide deck later this week. My name is Yamini Arab and I am on the CAHP program team. My colleagues and I work for TRC and we implement the program on behalf of pg&e. Any inquiries or correspondences with the program will be with us, but pg&e is the source of the incentives and the vision behind the program. Before I hand over the presentation to Nick, I would like to launch a poll. Let's start by finding out who is in our audience today. Please take a few seconds to make your selection. I'm going to give a few more seconds for everyone to make a selection. Okay, so looks like we have 61% energy consultants and HERS raters on the attendees and builder and developers as well. So thank you all for taking this poll. Our speaker today is Nick Dunphy. Nick is an associate project manager with TRC. His focus is on California residential new construction programs. Nick helps to design and implement the California Advanced Homes Program, California Multifamily New Homes Program, the Smart Homes Program, and the Roseville Advanced Homes Program. Nick, would you like to take it ahead from here? Nick, I think you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
Thank you, Yamini. I'd like to thank Yamini for introducing me and hosting the webinar. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time out of their day to join us for the update. First, I need to let everybody know that the California Advanced Homes Program is a pg&e sponsored, ratepayer-funded program that TRC Energy Services implements on behalf of pg&e. The California Advanced Homes Program is a single-family new construction program that offers incentives to builders for building more efficient and energy-conscious homes. TRC also implements a multifamily program with the same goals, known as the California Multifamily New Homes, or CMFNH program. The programs are developed to help participants prepare for code changes and to strive for zero net energy. They are funded under by the California Public Utilities Commission, and they're operated by the local IOUs. Program requirements. So the program is designed for performance-based compliance with 2016 Title 24 standards. CAHP is a program for the other major IOUs, that being Southern California Gas and San Diego Gas and Electric, but we will be specifically referring to the requirements that we manage for pg&e. It's for new construction only, new residential single-family homes and duplexes, and I will talk a little bit more about the entry eligibility as we get further into the presentation. So just a quick overview of what the agenda for today. I want to talk about why the program is changing now. Program updates overview, program kicker updates, and how we calculate incentives. So the first big question here is we just did this webinar recently, so why is the program changing? So the CAHP program is more than just an efficiency program. We're also a market transformation program. So our program is designed to capture any above code savings in the residential new construction market. We're also here to educate the industry about where the next code is headed. to help the industry work towards those standards before they are required to, and promote advanced building practices and efficiency measures to encourage early adoption and implementation of some of these harder to reach measures. All this results in energy savings and just going about our business a little differently and going about construction a little differently. So why change the 2017 program now? After we launched the program originally, we started speaking with builders, raters, other industry professionals, and we determined that the EDR entry score was not the most equitable method for program entry. That coupled along with the CEC, in the meantime, had released information of the proposed 2019 code standards. The CEC kind of changed some of the direction of the code, and being the program that we are and trying to work towards that next code cycle, we needed to change some of our kickers to adjust them to fit this new 2019 code expectation. We are changing to a Delta EDR methodology, which I will explain in much more detail shortly. But in general, this Delta EDR methodology, it more closely aligns with percent above code metric, and it's going to align perfectly with the forthcoming multifamily programs, both the California Multifamily New Homes Program here in the PG&E territory, and also the CAHP multifamily programs that are operated in IOUs down south. So program overview, I want to talk about the summary of changes to the 2017 program, and then I'll get into Delta EDR. So for the update, we're going to Delta EDR, which is, like I said, you're going to hear me talk about this a lot, but this is a new term, and I want everybody to get used to Delta EDR and exactly what it is. So I may be a little repetitive, but that's on purpose. The Delta EDR is similar to a better than code program. We are updating and improving the kickers. We are changing eligibility to a lot-by-lot basis, and I'll get into a lot more detail on that moving forward. And we're going to move to we're changing the coastal and inland climate zones. Have been slightly redefined. And everything I talk about today is applicable to all codes permitted, all projects permitted under the 2016 code. So that is any home that has been permitted since January 1st of this year. Unfortunately, the CAHP program is closed for all 2013 code projects at this time. So now I'm going to talk about the energy design rating. Currently, the energy design rating is embedded in the software. There are currently 4 different energy design ratings that I will cover, and a 5th is the new Delta EDR. So let's start off with the standard design EDR, and this one is used in the calculation of the Delta EDR. This is the EDR if the home were designed using the prescriptive path. So this is kind of like the baseline home that you're being compared to for your EDR score and code compliance. Proposed design EDR is the other current EDR score that we will look at as a program, and the proposed design EDR is the EDR as your home is designed with performance trade-offs, but not taking any generation that is any PV system into account. This is just your proposed design EDR for efficiency only. The next 2 we don't really pay attention to in the program, but they're embedded in the software, so I want to let you know what they are so we don't get them confused with the other EDRs. We're looking at a proposed PV EDR, and this is the EDR score of the PV system by itself. So this is just the EDR score for any generation on site. The final proposed EDR is the final EDR as the home is designed, taking PV into account. We don't look at this one in the program either. And the 5th in the new EDR rating is the Delta EDR. And this Delta EDR determines program eligibility and base incentive level. It is calculated by taking the standard design EDR and the proposed design EDR. And again, those are your baseline. Standard EDR is if your home was designed to the prescriptive path. and proposed design is your EDR taking efficiency into account. So we're looking at the difference between those two to come up with a delta EDR, so it's your change in EDR. So when I talk about delta here, I'm not talking about a river delta or the San Joaquin delta. I'm talking about delta as in a change. So I'm sure most of us have had a science class or a chemistry class somewhere along the way where they talked about a delta T for the change in temperature. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about the change in EDR score, the change in the energy design rating from your prescriptive path to the actual home that was built taking performance trade-offs. So the delta EDR is the change from prescriptive path to how the home was built, taking only efficiency into account. And an improved delta EDR of 3 will gain entry into the program in all climate zones. So across the state, we have a standard entry point of 3 delta EDR. So one thing that the EDR gives us the possibility to do is to make this a progressive program. What that means is the program will start out at the delta EDR 3. We feel that is an achievable goal, that we can get builders and projects involved in the program early. And then we can step the program up as the cycle progresses, as the code cycle progresses, to make it a little more challenging and to try to help guide builders to the 2019 code. What I mean by that is currently we're looking at a delta EDR 3 in 2017. And that roughly correlates to an 8 to 20% better than code home, and that is dependent upon climate zone. So a possibility that we're looking at, depending on how the program works out in 2017, is in 2018, possibly moving to a delta EDR 4. What that does is that allows us to bring homes into the program that are approximately 15 to 30% better than code. If all goes well in 2019, we could even move to a delta EDR 5, which would bring homes into the program that are 18 to 40% better than code. So though this looks like it's getting more stringent, you also have to remember we're now looking at this as a lot-by-lot program. And again, these future programs for 2018 and 2019 have not been determined. I'm only talking about a possible progression of the program just so you can get an idea of where this might go. So if this does happen in 2018 or 2019, this isn't a major surprise to anybody that everybody had this, that was looking at this on the horizon. So what do I mean by program is now a lot-by-lot level? Each orientation of a plan will be evaluated individually for eligibility. That means that some models may have orientations that fail to meet the delta EDR 3 to get in the program. That does not mean that that plan will be excluded from the program. It just means that homes built with the orientations that were not eligible will reserve an incentive of 0 and will receive no incentives. And that qualifying orientations will be paid according to their delta EDR of that particular orientation. It's not much different than what we do now. We have different eligibility. We have different incentive amounts for different orientations, and it's determined when the IRF is submitted. We determine which incentive level to pay. So now what we'll do is we'll basically be reserving an incentive of 0 for orientations that do not qualify. So let me just give you an example. If we're looking at the example on the screen, Plan A, north and south facing orientations definitely qualify for the program. They have a delta EDR of 3.9 and 3.8. But the east and west facing deltas, we're looking at a 0.8 and 0.7, and these are not going to qualify for the program. So moving forward, in 2017, we will accept this plan into the program. Every lot that's built with a north or south facing orientation will be paid the corresponding incentive for those orientations. And lots built in the east and west facing orientation were not eligible for incentives and will receive an incentive of 0. So just some general program implementation details. As always, homes cannot use the PV offset to gain entry into the CAHP program. We only apply PV for the 2019 code kickers, which I'll explain later on in the presentation. And permits program rules apply, and this just is what I said at the beginning of the presentation. This applies to any homes permitting to 2016 code must enroll under this CAHP program. So now I will talk a little bit about incentive kickers. I'm going to talk about the kicker overview of kickers, EDR performance embedded kickers, cash bonus kickers, hybrid kickers, and then the 2019 code kicker updates. So the 4 types of kickers, and these haven't changed from the last orientation, but I'll just go through them again. We have EDR performance embedded kickers, and these are non-modeled energy savings that we award with Delta EDR points. Cash bonus kickers, so these are green non-modeled measures that don't lead to directly calculated energy reductions. They're just best practices. So for these measures, we are going to award cash bonuses. We have hybrid kickers. Hybrid kickers, which I'll explain in more detail moving forward a little later in the presentation as well. Hybrid kickers are measures that have performance embedded savings. That is, these are modeled measures, so you are getting credit for taking these measures in the model already. And we're going to give you a cash bonus on top of that so that we can emphasize the importance of these measures. And then we have 2019 code kickers, which are cash bonuses for 2019 code ready homes and 2019 code homes, which I'll explain in a moment. So if we have 2 different performance embedded kickers. We have 100% LED lighting, which is all hardwired lighting in the home. Needs to be LED and needs to meet code requirements. We also have a home energy management system. For the home energy management system, it must track multiple end uses, including HVAC and plug load at a minimum. It must provide a method for the user to access energy usage information via a user interface. That interface could be tablet, it could be online. There's many different ways that we could have this information available. It just needs to be available to the homeowner. And for the home energy management system, we have an alternate compliance path. If you're not installing the home energy management system, we will still allow the kicker if the home is being wired so that no plug load, lighting load, or appliance load share a common circuit. What this does is it allows for the utilities to go in if they're in future demand response programs or just energy management programs. It allows them to go into the panel and be able to single out the different loads, and even in case of a DR program, when there's a DR event, it allows them to easily lower the wattage going to the lights and allows the home to more easily participate in future demand response programs. So for these performance embedded kickers, this is where the coastal and inland group is going to come into play now. CAHP uses different kicker values for these performance embedded kickers for different climate zones. We use coastal and inland because it's the best terminology we could come up with for this, but it really looks at what climate zones have larger HVAC loads. So you can look at this as the coastal zones are more temperate zones. They are zones where high-performance HVAC equipment does not get you more EDR points. Basically, we're trying to make entry into this program where high-performance equipment will not make it into the program. We're trying to push the envelope, pun intended, on the envelope, and for that reason, we've changed the point values where the HVAC load is more intense, and this is what I mean by that. So the point kickers for the inland climate zones, where delta EDRs are more easily attainable due to the intensity of the weather. We award those with a half a delta EDR point. And on the coast, where there's not as heavy of a HVAC load and it's harder to achieve these delta EDR points, meaning that in order to get these, you have to go to the envelope measures and these harder to obtain measures, we're awarding a 1 delta EDR point. And this is just an overview of the climate zones. So inland climate zones, which are the more HVAC intensive climate zones, are climate zones 1 and 2 and 9 through 15. And the less HVAC intensive climate zones, the coastal climate zones, are climate zones 3 through 8 and 16. So now I want to talk about cash bonus kickers. So for these, we have the Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready Home Certified. So that it means the home obtains the Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready Home certification, and that home will be awarded a $400 kicker bonus. If a home installs balanced IAQ ventilation system, then the home will receive a $100 bonus for that. The caveat to these kickers is that balanced IAQ is a mandate for the Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready Home certification. So both these kickers cannot be taken. If you're taking the Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready Home certification, you will only receive the $400 kicker. You will not receive the additional $100 for the balanced IAQ. But if you install a balanced IAQ and you're not going for the certification, then you can receive the $100 for installing balanced IAQ in your home. The next kickers are the hybrid kickers. And again, these are the kickers that can be modeled, and we're also giving you a cash bonus on top of that. And these are a whole house fan, and these have to be installed in accordance with Title 24, Part 6. We have high performance attics at $200. And again, they have to be in accordance with the prescriptive requirements of the code, or we allow totally sealed attics to apply for this. We have high performance walls at $200, again in accordance with the prescriptive requirements of the code. And high performance fenestration, the $200 kicker. And to qualify for the high performance fenestration, all windows must have a U factor of less than 0.24. There is no solar heat gain requirement for this beyond just meeting code for your climate zone. And this only applies to windows. This does not apply to skylights or any type of doors. It's just all windows have to meet the U factor of less than or equal to 0.24 in order to qualify for this $200 bonus. The last type of kicker is 2019 code kickers. So the change moving forward in the 2019 code is now Z&E is being looked at as zero site energy use annual site kWh use. So we have adjusted our kicker accordingly. So the 2019 code ready home kicker of $250, you have to meet the Delta EDR for entry into the program. If you meet the Delta EDR and your annual site kWh is 0, with the 3 kW PV system modeled but not installed, you'll receive a $250 kicker for your home being 2019 code ready. So the same thing for the 2019 code home. You have to be eligible for entry into the program. The difference is you actually install the solar. It doesn't matter what size solar you install, but as long as this annual site kWh is equal to 0 with the solar installed, you will receive a $500 kicker for having a 2019 code home. So then this is just a kicker summary of everything I just went over. And then let me get into incentive calculations. So incentive calculations are, I'm going to talk about the base incentive calculation, where to find the appropriate EDR scores to calculate your incentive, and adding kickers to increase your incentive. So this is the basic incentive structure. We have an entry point with a delta EDR of 3. At the delta EDR of 3, you receive a $300 base incentive. For every delta EDR point between 3 and 6, you'll receive an additional $150 per lot. any point above the inflection point of 6 delta EDR, you'll receive $300 per delta EDR point. On top of that, we have potential kicker bonuses, and we have the potential code kicker bonuses. So calculating the delta EDR to determine eligibility. We start with the standard design EDR. We subtract the final design EDR. And then we add any kicker points to that, and we get your delta EDR. So as an example, this is an example of a home on the coast that had a standard EDR 45.2. The proposed design EDR is 37.8. They install LED lighting, giving them an additional point. So their original delta EDR between the 45.2 and 37.8 comes out to be a 7.4 delta. We add the 1 point for the 100% LED lighting to get to a delta EDR of 8.4. We look at the exact same home in an inland climate zone. We have a delta EDR 45.2 still, a proposed design of 37.8, and the LED lighting is now worth a half a point. So their natural delta there would be a 7.4. We add the half a point for the LED lighting since they're inland. We get to a delta of 7.9. So what does this mean for their incentives? For the incentive, we round the delta down to the nearest integer. So that means that the delta EDR of 7.4 rounds down to 7. And the incentive level of that is $1,050. And for the coastal, the delta rounds down to an 8, and we're looking at a base incentive level of $1,350 for that unit. So where do we find this delta EDR? The easiest place is on the CF1R report on page 2 or 3. Again, I want to stress which EDR we're looking at. We want to look for the EDR of the proposed design and the standard design. We do not want the final EDR of proposed design. The final EDR takes solar into account, and for this program we are not looking at either one of these, the solar score or the final EDR score. So with the EDR score and CBEC res, in order to get the EDR to calculate on the CF1R or to calculate in the program, we have to go in and turn on the energy design rating inputs. So to do that, you click in the project, open the analysis window, click on the EDR tab, and click the checkbox. If there is a solar system being installed, we would enter the size of the PV system here and click OK, and at that point the software will calculate an EDR score and it will print on the CF1R. It will also show up on the Title 24 Analysis tab. Again, we're not looking at the final proposed EDR. We want to look at the EDR of the proposed design and the EDR of the standard design in order to determine the delta EDR. Now in Energy Pro automatically calculates the EDR. There is no checkbox. But note, the on-screen display of the EDR, it shows the proposed EDR it shows is the final proposed EDR. This is not the proposed EDR we want to look at. So when we look at this example and the on-screen output, at first glance it appears that this project would more than qualify for the program. It shows a delta EDR of 28.6. But again, this score is taking solar into account. When we run this same project and we print the EDR on the CF1R and we look, the EDR of the proposed design is actually 47.0, not the 16.8 taking solar into account, which means for this project the delta EDR is actually negative when not taking solar into account, and this project would not qualify for the program. When we factor in the solar credits, this home uses more energy than the standard design. This home would definitely not be eligible for the program. So the moral of this story is currently in Energy Pro, when modeling with solar, you must run the CF1R report in order to determine the delta EDR for program eligibility. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the true value of hybrid kickers. So these are measures, again, that have performance embedded savings and cash to emphasize their importance. I just want to, before I get into this, I want to emphasize that when I'm talking about an EDR bump, I'm talking about the difference in the EDR from implementing this measure versus not implementing this measure. This has nothing to do with EDR points versus compliance, because they're comparing to prescriptive path, and in many cases these high performance measures are the prescriptive path. So what I'm talking about here is the additional EDR points versus implementing these measures and not implementing these measures. So first we're going to look at high performance attics as an example. So on the low end, the difference between implementing a high performance attic and not could be between 1 and 3 EDR points. And that value could be anywhere between $150 and $900 to your base incentive, depending on what your natural delta EDR is. Those points could be worth $150 each, or they could be worth $300 each, depending on how efficient your home is. So what that means is you're getting that EDR bump on your base incentive, plus you're getting the $200 cash kicker, which means dependent on the home, the true value of that measure turns out to be $350 to $1,100, and not just the $200 kicker. The same is true for the high performance walls, high performance windows, and whole house fans. These can add additional points to your EDR when you're implementing them. So that adds value to your base incentive plus the cash kickers. So let me give you an example of adding cash kickers. So this will be an example with a delta EDR of 7.2. We have a base incentive of $1,050. We had high performance attics at 200, whole house fan at 100, balance IAQ at 100, and the home reached an annual site KWH of less than or equal to 0. So they received the 2019 Code Ready Home of 500 for a total lot incentive of $1,950. So when we add the true value of the hybrid kicker measures in this example, the previous delta EDR of 7.2 gave us a base incentive of $1,950. So let's assume that that same home, if it were not to implement high performance attics, would lose 3 embedded EDR points. And for the whole house fan, they would lose 1 delta EDR point. So they're losing a total of 4 delta EDR points. So their delta is no longer 7.2, their delta is now 3.2, which means their base incentive is only 300. They're no longer getting the incentive for the attic or the whole house fan. They're still getting the balanced IAQ. And for the sake of argument, I left the 2019 Code Ready Home kicker in here, but more than likely they probably would not be eligible for it if they're not implementing these other measures. So now this brings the total lot incentive down to $1,050. What this means is even though the cash incentive amounts for the high performance attics and high performance our whole house fan only appear to total $300, the true value of adding these measures to a home that was not previously implementing them is actually a $900 bonus between the $1,950 original incentive and the new incentive of $1,050. So now I'm going to show you a little bit of our new website in case you weren't on the last webinar. Let me pull it up here. It's at CAHP-pg&e.com. So we've revamped the website this year to make it a little more navigable. All the program information is here. This is kind of how the program progresses. So you can click in here to learn more about the program. Later this week, we will have an updated handbook listed here with program details with the changes. You can move to here, and this is where you will find the program application materials, an incentive calculator, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then the next step would be once you're enrolled, if you had changes or adjustments to a project, you would come into this section for a adjustment application, a rollover application to a new code cycle. And then when you're done with construction, this section will get you to all the information you need for incentive request. Let me go into the enrollment part. So here you'll find an application checklist, an updated application, and an incentive calculator. So let's look at the new application. So we've reduced our application to a single page, and we have actually allowed for, this actually needs updated. We now will accept an electronic signature. So on the new application, you will just have to type in your full name, submit it to us electronically, and we can accept that signature now. You no longer have to print, sign, scan, forward the documents back in. So we hope that makes things a little easier for participation, and also reducing the length of the application should also make things a little easier for participation. We no longer have the form to fill out for incentive calculation. Since we're going to do that as part of our plan review anyways, we left that out so we're not being redundant, to make things a little easier on your participation. We have an application checklist, and then we have an updated incentive calculator that will be loaded probably later today or tomorrow with the updated program guidelines. So in the calculator, you will just enter your standard design EDR, your proposed design EDR, your climate zone, and then you would click check boxes for any kickers you'll be receiving, and it will give you your estimated lot incentive for that lot. So again, with the program being on a lot-by-lot basis, you would have to enter the delta, the proposed design and standard design for each orientation, and determine the eligibility and base incentive for each individual orientation of any particular plan. And then we also have on here a letter of interest. And what the letter of interest does is, if you submit a letter of interest to us, it allows you to go ahead and start on your project. But it sets an eligibility date. It gives you 3 months to get your completed application package to us. But what it does is it tells us your interest in the program to allow you to go ahead and start with the project, even though we might not have a completed application package yet. So that'll give you a 3-month window to complete your application package and go ahead and start construction in that time. We also have on the website news, tips, and training section that you can go to where this webinar will be posted, and we have information about upcoming trainings, any changes to the program. We might have some project case studies posted there, and just tips, modeling tips, trainings, and updates to the code, or things that are happening in the industry that we feel our participants should be aware of. Another source for good information I can tell you about is the WISE program. So for people that don't know, the WISE program is working to inform builders and help move them towards some of the more harder to reach measures like high performance attics and high performance walls. As you may know, these are now prescriptive requirements in California's building energy efficiency standards. And the program is set up to help train contractors and laborers in this post-recession shortage of skilled laborers. The Energy Commission has set up this program. It's funded by the California Energy Commission's Electric Program Investment Charge, or EPIC program. And WISE is designed to help accelerate learning and implementation of high-performance building by training workers and providing a platform for the exchange of best practices and solutions from industry experts. WISE is designed as a central point for sharing information related to the program, including reports, technical briefings, case studies, and event coordination. And speaking of events, they have 2 events coming up in the following weeks. One is Wednesday, April 12th at Stockton, and then they'll have the same presentation again on Thursday, April 20th in San Francisco at the Pacific Energy Center. These forums are on high-performance walls and roofs or high-performance attics. It's designed to build energy efficient high-performance roof and attic assemblies, and it's going to talk about how we can do this and reduce premature roof failures. It's going to talk about how to make best insulation selection, best practices, and just understanding how these new measures work and what they're set out to do, and just try to give the industry and builders a better understanding of these measures and what they're intended to do. When we send out the slides later, there's some useful links for everybody and what we can expect next. So we are currently getting this update integrated into the CBEC software. So hopefully in version 7.2, which should be coming out in May, all of these calculations will be baked into the software, so you won't have to use the incentive calculator. You will just run your models in the software, and it will tell you what the expected incentive value for those lots are. We have a multifamily, this California Multifamily New Homes Program design. I'll be hosting an orientation webinar on Tuesday, April 18th. This is the link to sign up so we can discuss the new CMF&H program. And check the CAHP website regularly for tips, trainings, code talks, just general updates to the program. And we'll see you on the 18th for the programming, for the CMF&H launch. And now I'll open up the webinar to questions. Yamini, do we have any questions?
We do not have any questions at this point, but I would like to remind everyone that if you're not able to ask question, or if you can come up with any questions. Oh, I think we got a question. Oh no, that's a comment. If you come up with any questions after the webinar, please feel free to send them our way at the rnc@trcsolutions.com email address. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks again, Nick, for the presentation, and see you all again on the 18th.